The year was 2347. Commander Jake Morrison stood alone on the observation deck of the Coalition flagship Starweaver. He watched the stars through the thick glass window. They looked peaceful, but Jake knew the truth. Something terrible was coming. The Galactic Coalition had protected 12 star systems for over 1,000 years. It was made up of 4 species. The Selenari were tall beings with blue skin and silver eyes. They were the oldest and wisest. The HFY had bodies made of living crystal that glowed with soft light. The Moranthi were insect-like creatures who shared thoughts with each other through their hive mind. And then there were the humans, the newest members who had only joined the Coalition 50 years ago. Jake was 34 years old. He had brown hair cut short in military style and tired eyes that had seen too much in recent weeks. He was one of only 200 humans serving in the Coalition fleet. The other species treated humans well enough, but they never truly respected them. Humans were young. Humans were weak. Humans were still learning. A soft alarm rang through the ship. Jake turned and walked quickly to the main bridge. His boots made clicking sounds on the metal floor. When the doors opened, he saw chaos. Admiral Varteth stood at the center of the bridge. He was Selenari, over 300 years old, and he had commanded Coalition forces for 2 centuries. His blue skin had turned pale. His silver eyes were wide with something Jake had never seen in them before. Fear. Report, Jake said to the nearest officer. A young Selenari female named Reltha. 17 more worlds have gone dark, she said. Her voice was shaking. The Kethari fleet has destroyed everything in sectors 9 through 14. We cannot reach any survivors. Jake felt his stomach drop. 17 worlds. Billions of lives. Gone. The Kethari had appeared 3 months ago. They came from the dark spaces between galaxies, places where no species had ever traveled. Their ships were not made of metal like Coalition vessels. They were alive. Massive creatures of bone and flesh and dark organic material, grown rather than built. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply consumed everything in their path. Show me the tactical display, Admiral Varteth ordered. The holographic map appeared above the central table. Jake moved closer to see it. Red marks covered nearly a quarter of Coalition space. Each red mark was a world that had fallen. A world that no longer existed. Our fleet status? The Admiral asked. Sir, we have 112 vessels remaining, a HFY officer reported. The crystal being's voice was like bells chiming. Down from 387 at the start of the conflict. Jake closed his eyes for a moment. They had lost over 200 ships in 3 months. The greatest military force in the galaxy was being torn apart. The human contingent requests updated orders, Jake said. He had to speak for his people. That was his duty. Admiral Varteth looked at him with something like pity. Commander Morrison, the human fleet should return to Earth. Protect your homeworld for as long as you can. This war is beyond your capabilities. The words stung, but Jake did not argue. He knew the Admiral meant no insult. Humanity's entire fleet was only 32 ships. What could they do against an enemy that had destroyed hundreds? I will inform my superiors, Jake said quietly. He left the bridge and made his way to the communication room. It was small and private. He entered his access codes and waited for the connection to Earth. After several minutes, a face appeared on the screen. President Maria Santos looked back at him. She was in her 50s, with gray hair and sharp brown eyes. Behind her, he could see the walls of her office in Washington. Commander Morrison, report. Jake told her everything. He told her about the 17 worlds, about the shrinking fleet, about Admiral Varteth's suggestion that humans retreat to defend Earth. When he finished, there was silence. How long until the HFY reach Earth? President Santos asked. At their current rate of advance, perhaps 4 months. Maybe less. The president nodded slowly. And the coalition? What will they do? They are preparing to fall back to their homeworlds, Madam President. Each species will make their final stand alone. The alliance is breaking apart. President Santos was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was calm and steady. Commander, I want you to return to Earth immediately. Bring any human personnel who wish to come. Leave the coalition fleet to its fate. Yes, Madam President. And Commander? She leaned closer to the screen. Tell no one what I am about to tell you. When you arrive on Earth, report directly to General Nathan Cole at Ceres Station. He will explain everything. Jake frowned. Ceres Station? The mining outpost in the asteroid belt? A small smile appeared on the president's face. It is much more than that, Commander. It has always been much more than that. The coalition has underestimated humanity since the day we joined them. They see us as children, weak, fragile, unable to defend ourselves. With respect, Madam President, they may be right. Our fleet is tiny compared to theirs, and even they are losing. Our official fleet is tiny, yes. The president's eyes seem to glow with hidden knowledge. But we have never shown the galaxy everything we have. We learned long ago that it is wise to keep secrets from those who think themselves our betters. Jake stared at her. He did not understand what she meant. Just come home, Commander. Come home and see what humanity has been building in the dark. See what we have prepared for a day exactly like this one. The screen went dark. Jake sat in the empty room for several minutes. His mind was spinning with questions. What was at Ceres Station? What had humanity been hiding? He stood up and walked back toward the bridge. He had to arrange transport for the human personnel. He had to say goodbye to the coalition officers he had served with. Some of them had become friends. He knew he would never see them again. When he passed the observation window, he stopped once more. The stars were still there, still beautiful. Somewhere out in that darkness, the HFY were coming. They had crushed the greatest military force in the galaxy. They would come for Earth eventually. But as Jake looked at those distant stars, he felt something strange growing in his chest. It was not fear. It was not despair. It was hope. President Santos knew something. She had a plan. Humanity had prepared for this moment. The coalition thought humans were weak. They thought humans would die quickly when the HFY arrived. They had already written Earth off as a lost cause. Jake smiled for the first time in weeks. They had no idea what was coming. The transport ship carrying Commander Jake Morrison arrived at Ceres Station 3 weeks later. He had expected to see a small mining operation. Machines digging rocks. Workers in dusty suits. Nothing special. What he saw made him forget to breathe. Ceres was not a mining station. It was a shipyard. The entire asteroid had been hollowed out over decades of secret work. Inside that vast empty space, lit by massive lights that made it bright as day, sat a fleet of warships. Jake counted them as the transport moved slowly through the entrance tunnel. 50, 100, 200, 300 warships, hidden inside an asteroid, built in complete secrecy while the coalition thought humanity was weak. Beautiful, is it not? A voice said behind him. Jake turned to find a tall man with gray hair and the uniform of a general. His face was lined with age, but his eyes were sharp and alive. A name tag on his chest read Cole. General Nathan Cole, Jake said, saluting quickly. I was told to report to you. At ease, Commander. General Cole moved to stand beside him at the window. I remember the first time I saw it too. I could not believe what we had accomplished. How is this possible? Jake asked. His voice was barely a whisper. The Coalition treaty limits our fleet size. They inspect our shipyards. They count our vessels every year. General Cole smiled. They inspect our official shipyards. They count our official vessels. But they never thought to look inside an asteroid in the middle of nowhere. Why would they? We are just humans. We are not clever enough to hide things from them. Jake shook his head in wonder. 40 years. You have been building this for 40 years. Since before you were born, Commander. Since the very first day we joined the Coalition and realized that they saw us as lesser beings. The General's voice grew serious. We smiled at their condescension. We accepted their limitations on our fleet. We let them believe we were grateful children happy to follow their rules. And all the while, we were preparing. The transport docked at a large platform near the center of the hollow asteroid. Jake followed General Cole out into the shipyard. Workers moved everywhere. Some were welding hull plates. Others were loading weapons into storage bays. The air was filled with the sounds of construction and the smell of hot metal. The Prometheus Protocol, General Cole said as they walked. Named after the Greek god who stole fire from the heavens and gave it to humanity. That is what we are doing here. We have taken the knowledge the Coalition shared with us. We have improved it. Made it better than they ever imagined possible. They stopped in front of one of the warships. It was massive, larger than any vessel Jake had ever seen. Its hull was dark gray and smooth, designed to deflect sensor scans. Its shape was aggressive, built for speed and power. This is the Defiance, General Cole said. The first of the Prometheus-class dreadnoughts. She will be your ship, Commander. Jake stared at him. My ship? President Santos has promoted you to captain. You will command the Defiance in the coming battle. Jake felt dizzy. Just weeks ago, he had been a minor officer on a Coalition ship. Now he was being given command of the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. I do not understand, he said. Why me? Because you have seen the enemy, Captain Morrison. You have watched the Kethari destroy Coalition fleets. You know how they fight. And you came home anyway, ready to keep fighting. General Cole put a hand on Jake's shoulder. We need officers who have seen the darkness and still believe we can win. They climbed a ramp into the Defiance. The interior was clean and modern, with soft lights and smooth walls. Crew members saluted as they passed. Jake noticed they were all young, most of them in their 20s. Where did they train? He asked. Secret facilities on Mars and Europa. They have studied every recording of Kethari attacks. They know enemy tactics better than the enemy knows themselves. They reached the bridge. It was wide and circular, with stations for 12 officers and a command chair at the center. Large screens showed views of the shipyard outside. A young woman stood waiting for them. She had short black hair and Asian features. Her uniform was neat and pressed. Captain Morrison, this is Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park. She will be your first officer. Lisa saluted sharply. An honor to serve with you, Captain. At ease, Jake said. He looked around the bridge again, still unable to believe this was happening. Have you commanded ships before, Commander Park? Simulations only, sir. But I have run over 2,000 combat scenarios against Kethari attack patterns. My record is the best in the fleet. Jake nodded. Simulations were not the same as real combat, but it was better than nothing. Show me the weapon systems, he said. Lisa led him to the tactical station. A young man with red hair was working there. He introduced himself as Lieutenant Sam Hayes, the ship's tactical officer. The Defiance carries 3 main weapon types, Sam explained, pointing to diagrams on his screen. First, pulse cannons. Standard energy weapons, but twice as powerful as Coalition equivalents. Second, kinetic accelerators. They fire solid projectiles at very high speeds, perfect for punching through organic armor. And the third? Jake asked. Sam smiled. Something special, sir. Quantum destabilization warheads. The Coalition said they were impossible to build. They were wrong. What do? They cause matter to break apart at the atomic level. When one hits a HFY ship, it does not just damage the vessel. It makes the living cells fall apart. The entire section dies. Jake felt a cold satisfaction. The HFY had been destroying worlds. Now humanity had a weapon that could make them suffer. General Cole appeared beside them. The fleet will launch in 2 days, Captain. You will lead the first battle group. Your mission is simple. Find the HFY advance force near Epsilon Eridani. Destroy them completely. Show the galaxy that humanity is not finished. And if we fail? Jake asked. Then Earth dies and humanity ends. The general's voice was calm and matter-of-fact. There is no backup plan. There is no retreat. We win or we lose everything. Jake looked around the bridge at his new crew. They were young and untested. They had never seen real combat. But their eyes were determined. They were ready to fight. We will not fail, Jake said. He sat down in the command chair. It felt right. Begin final preparations. I want the ship ready for battle. Yes. Yes. Captain, Lisa said as his crew rushed to their stations. Jake allowed himself to feel something he had not felt in months. Hope. Real hope. The Coalition thought humanity was weak. The HFY thought the galaxy was already conquered. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Epsilon Eridani system. 300 warships spread out in a wide formation, their dark hulls reflecting the distant starlight. At the center of the formation, the Defiance led the way. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair. His hands gripped the armrest tight. This was the moment. This was where humanity would prove itself or die trying. Report, he ordered. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park checked her console. All ships have arrived safely, Captain. Formation is holding. Weapons are charged and ready. Enemy contacts? Jake asked. Lieutenant Sam Hayes looked up from the tactical station. His face was pale but determined. Sir, I am counting 612 HFY vessels. They are gathered near the fourth planet. It looks like they are refueling or repairing. 600 ships. Jake had known the numbers beforehand, but hearing them spoken aloud made his stomach tight. Humanity was outnumbered 2-1. Open a channel to the fleet, Jake said. Channel open, sir. Jake stood up from his chair. He needed his captains to hear confidence in his voice, even if he did not feel it completely. All ships, this is Captain Morrison. The enemy ahead of us has destroyed hundreds of Coalition vessels. They have conquered dozens of worlds. They believe they are unstoppable. He paused and took a deep breath. They are wrong. Today, we show them what humanity can do. Today, we take the first step toward victory. Morrison out. He sat back down. Admiral Walsh, the fleet is yours. On the main screen, the face of Admiral Catherine Walsh appeared. She was a woman in her 50s, with steel gray hair pulled back tight. She had been a fighter pilot before becoming an admiral. And she still had the sharp eyes of someone who could kill you from 100 miles away. All battle groups. Move to assigned positions, Admiral Walsh commanded. Her voice was calm and controlled. Remember your training. Trust your ships. Trust each other. Today, we make history. The fleet began to move. It split into 5 separate groups, each one circling toward different angles of approach. The maneuver was called the Wolfpack Formation. Humans had used it for centuries in naval warfare on Earth. No alien species had ever seen it before. The Cathari finally noticed them. On the tactical display, Jake watched the enemy fleet react. 600 organic ships began to shift and move, forming into their standard attack pattern. It was a sphere, designed to surround enemies and crush them from all sides. "They are treating us like any other target," Lisa observed. "They do not see us as a real threat." "Good," Jake said. "Let them underestimate us." Battle Group 1, fire on my command. The Defiance and its 50 companion ships raced toward the enemy sphere. Cathari vessels opened fire first. Streams of green acid and burning plasma shot through space. Several shots hit human ships, but the specially designed hulls held. The carbon titanium armor absorbed the impacts without breaking. "No damage reported in the group," Sam announced. He sounded surprised and relieved. "Return fire," Jake ordered. The human ships opened up with everything they had. Pulse cannons sent beams of blue energy slicing through space. Kinetic accelerators launched solid rounds at incredible speeds. And the quantum destabilization warheads flew toward the largest enemy targets. The first warhead struck a Cathari cruiser near the front of their formation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire front section of the living ship began to fall apart. Cells separated from cells. Organic matter crumbled into dust. The vessel broke into pieces without any explosion, simply coming undone like a body without bones. "Direct hit," Sam reported, his voice rising with excitement. "Target destroyed." The warhead worked perfectly. More warheads found their targets. More Cathari ships died in that strange, silent way. The enemy formation began to show holes. Battle Groups 2 and 3 attack from the flanks. Admiral Walsh ordered that another 100 human ships struck the Cathari from both sides. The aliens tried to turn and face the new threats, but they were too slow. Human ships were faster and more agile. They danced around the massive organic vessels, hitting them again and again while avoiding return fire. Jake watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. Numbers appeared next to each fleet. The Cathari count was dropping fast. 500. 450. 400. "They are trying to retreat," Lisa said suddenly. She was right. The Cathari were pulling back, trying to regroup near the fourth planet. But battle groups 4 and 5 had already circled around behind them. There was nowhere to run. "All ships, pursue and destroy," Admiral Walsh commanded. "Do not let any of them escape." The next 3 hours were brutal. Human ships chased Cathari vessels across the system, hunting them down one by one. The aliens fought back hard. They destroyed several human ships, killing crews that Jake would mourn later. But for every human ship lost, the fleet destroyed 20 enemy vessels. By the end, the Cathari advance force no longer existed. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance, staring at the tactical display. Where 600 enemy ships had gathered, there was now only debris. Pieces of dead organic matter floated through space like the corpses of giant whales. "Final count," Sam announced. His voice was hoarse from hours of battle. "We have destroyed 612 enemy vessels. Our losses are 27 ships, with crews recovered from 18 of them. 27 ships lost. Nearly 1,000 humans dead. It was a terrible price. But they had won. They had completely destroyed a Cathari fleet, something no one in the galaxy had ever done before." "Admiral Walsh is hailing us," Lisa said. The Admiral's face appeared on screen. She was smiling. It was the first time Jake had ever seen her smile. "Captain Morrison, I am promoting you to Commodore effective immediately. The Defiance will remain your flagship, but you will now command the first battle group." "Thank you, Admiral," Jake said. He did not feel joy. He felt exhaustion and grief for the dead. But he also felt pride. His crew had performed perfectly. Every officer, every enlisted person had done their job. Set course for Earth, Admiral Walsh continued. We need to resupply and repair. And then we need to spread the word. The word, Admiral? That humanity is not beaten. That the HFY can be killed. That the war is not over. Her smile grew wider. The galaxy needs to know what happened here today. They need to know that someone is still fighting. Jake nodded. She was right. The coalition species had given up hope. They were preparing for extinction. But now there was proof that the HFY were not invincible. Humanity had struck back, and this was only the beginning. All ships, Jake said over the fleet channel. Set course for Earth. We are going home. As the fleet entered hyperspace, Jake allowed himself one moment of rest. He closed his eyes and thought about the battle. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. But the HFY would send more ships. They would come for Earth eventually. This victory had bought humanity time, nothing more. Still, time was valuable. Time meant preparation. Time meant allies. Jake opened his eyes and looked at his crew. They were exhausted but proud. They had proven something today, not just to the galaxy, but to themselves. Humans could fight. Humans could win, and they were just getting started. News of the Battle of Epsilon Eridani spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Hidden scout vessels from a dozen species had watched the fight from safe distances. They recorded everything. They saw the human fleet emerge from nowhere. They saw the HFY die by the hundreds. They saw the impossible become real. On the Selenari homeworld, High Chancellor Vormesh sat in his ancient throne room. His blue skin had grown pale over the past months as news of defeat after defeat reached him. His people were preparing for the end. Some were building bunkers. Others were writing farewell messages to be sealed in time capsules. Everyone believed they would die soon. Then his advisor rushed in with a data crystal. You must see this, High Chancellor. It comes from our scouts at Epsilon Eridani. Vormesh watched the recording 3 times. He could not believe what his eyes showed him. Humans, the youngest and weakest species in the coalition. They had destroyed an entire HFY fleet. How is this possible? He whispered. We do not know, High Chancellor. But it is real. The HFY advance force is gone. Every ship. Destroyed by humans. Similar scenes played out across coalition space. The BackHFY, whose crystal bodies had been cracking from stress and fear, watched the recordings and began to glow brighter. The Moranthi hive mind buzzed with new patterns of thought. Patterns that felt like hope instead of despair. And then came the invitation. Ambassador Kira Brennan stood at a podium in the great hall of Selner Prime. She was a small woman with brown hair and glasses, looking almost lost in the massive chamber designed to make visitors feel small. Behind her, holographic screens showed the emblem of Earth and the United Human Nations. Representatives from every coalition species had gathered. Some attended in person. Others appeared as holograms. All of them stared at the human woman with expressions that mixed disbelief with something new. Respect. Thank you for coming, Kira began. Her voice was steady and clear. I know you have questions. I know you are confused. For 50 years, you believed humans were the weakest species in the coalition. Today, I am here to tell you the truth. She pressed a button. The screens behind her changed to show images of the Ceres shipyard, the hidden fleet, the technology humanity had developed in secret. We built this in secret because you never took us seriously, Kira continued. Every time a human engineer suggested an improvement, your scientists laughed. Every time a human officer recommended a new tactic, your admirals dismissed it. You saw us as children who should be grateful for your guidance. The chamber was silent. Many of the alien representatives looked uncomfortable. They knew she was telling the truth, but we did not waste our time on anger. We spent it on preparation. We studied your technology and made it better. We trained our soldiers in ways you never imagined. And when the Kethari came and you prepared to surrender, we prepared to fight. Admiral Catherine Walsh appeared on screen next, speaking from the bridge of the Defiance. Her gray hair was slightly messy from battle, and there were tired lines under her eyes. But her voice was strong. At Epsilon Eridani, we destroyed 612 enemy vessels. We lost 27 of our own. This was not luck. This was not an accident. This was the result of decades of preparation and the determination of every human in our fleet. The Selenari High Chancellor rose from his seat. His voice echoed through the chamber. You hid your strength from the Coalition. You violated the treaty we signed together. How can we trust you now? Kira nodded, expecting this question. You're right that we hid things from you. But let me ask you something, High Chancellor. When your own fleet was dying, when hundreds of your ships were being destroyed, did you share your secret weapons with us? Did you trust us with your best technology? Silence. Every species in this room has secrets, Kira continued. The difference is that our secrets might save the galaxy. We are not here to blame you or ask for apologies. We are here to offer you a choice. She stepped forward, her small form somehow commanding the attention of every being in the chamber. Humanity will fight the Kethari with or without your help. We will defend Earth. We will strike at their homeworld. We will win, or we will die trying. But we would rather fight alongside allies than alone. What are you proposing? Asked the crystal voice of a BackHFY ambassador. Full technology sharing. Our weapon systems, our hull designs, our tactical methods. We will give them to any species willing to stand with us. In exchange, you give us your resources, your remaining ships, and your soldiers. A buzz of conversation filled the chamber. Species that had been preparing for extinction suddenly saw another option. The Moranti representative spoke, its voice a chorus of clicks and whistles translated by machines. The Hive has considered your offer. We accept. Our warriors will fight beside yours. One by one, other species agreed. The BackHFY offered their mining stations and factories. The Selenari promised their remaining warships and their scientific knowledge. Smaller species pledged what little they had left. High Chancellor Vormash was the last to speak. He stood slowly, his old bones creaking. He walked down from his throne until he stood directly in front of Kira Brennan. Even bent with age, he towered over her. For 1,000 years, the Selenari have led the Coalition. We believed it was our right, our duty. He paused and took a deep breath. We were wrong. Today, I recognize humanity as the new leaders of our alliance. Admiral Walsh will command all Coalition forces. We will follow where you lead. Kira bowed respectfully. We do not want to rule you, High Chancellor. We want to save you. All of us, together. Then save us, Vormash said simply. Show us how to fight like humans. The next weeks were the busiest in galactic history. Human engineers traveled to alien shipyards, teaching new construction methods. Human officers trained alien crews in tactics the Kethari had never faced. Weapons were built, ships were repaired, and soldiers prepared for war. Commodore Jake Morrison spent most of his time coordinating the first battle group. His fleet had grown from 50 ships to over 100, now including Selenari cruisers and BackHFY support vessels. The crews were learning to work together. It was not easy. Languages, customs, and ways of thinking were different. But they shared one thing in common. They all wanted to survive. The alliance is holding better than I expected, Lisa Park said one evening as they reviewed reports together. Jake nodded. Fear of death is a powerful motivator. So is hope. We gave them both. The Cathari main fleet is gathering near their homeworld. Intelligence suggests over 800 ships, possibly more. I know. Admiral Walsh is planning the final assault. We attack in 3 weeks. Lisa was quiet for a moment. Do you think we can win? Jake looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the enemy was waiting. An enemy that had nearly conquered the galaxy. I think we have to, he said finally. Because if we do not, there will be nothing left to save. He turned back to his work. There was still so much to do. Ships to prepare. Crews to train. Plans to finalize. The galaxy was watching. The galaxy was waiting, and humanity was ready to lead them into the final battle. The combined fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Cathari home territory. 437 warships spread across the darkness of space, representing every species in the coalition. Human dreadnoughts flew alongside Selenari cruisers. BackHFY energy ships took positions next to Moranthi troop carriers. For the first time in history, the galaxy stood truly united. Admiral Catherine Walsh stood on the bridge of the Defiance. She had not slept in 2 days. None of them had. This was the moment everything led to. Victory here would end the war. Defeat would mean extinction for every species that had dared to resist. Final fleet check. She ordered. Reports came in from every battle group. All ships were in position. All weapons were charged. All crews were ready. Enemy fleet status? Lieutenant Sam Hayes studied his tactical display. He had been promoted 3 times since the war began. His red hair was longer now, and his young face had grown hard with experience. 842 Cathari vessels in defensive formation around the prime world. The planet itself is showing massive energy readings. Our scientists believe it serves as a central control point for all Cathari forces. Walsh nodded. Intelligence had suggested this. The Cathari were not individual creatures. They were extensions of a single consciousness, a hive mind centered on their homeworld. If that consciousness could be destroyed, every Cathari in the galaxy would die. Commodore Morrison, Walsh said, your group will lead the first assault. Break their outer defensive line. Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the Defiance. Lisa Parks stood beside him, calm and focused. They had fought together through dozens of battles now. They knew each other's thoughts without speaking. Understood, Admiral. First battle group, form attack pattern Delta. All ships, follow me in. The assault began. 120 ships raced toward the Cathari defensive sphere. Behind them, hidden among asteroids that had been positioned weeks ago, massive kinetic accelerators powered up. These weapons had been built in secret, just like the first human fleet. They were the size of small moons, and they fired projectiles at nearly the speed of light. The first volley struck the outer Cathari formation like the fist of an angry god. 40 enemy ships vanished in an instant. Not destroyed, annihilated. The kinetic impacts were so powerful that nothing remained but spreading clouds of organic particles. Second volley firing, Sam reported. Third volley in 30 seconds. More Cathari ships died. The outer defensive sphere began to collapse. Enemy vessels tried to scatter to avoid the incoming projectiles, but they were too large and too slow. The kinetic weapons had been designed specifically to counter their formations. All battle groups, attack now, Admiral Walsh commanded. The entire coalition fleet surged forward. Pulse cannons lit up space with blue fire. Quantum destabilization warheads flew toward the largest targets. Selenari ships fired ancient weapons that had not been used in centuries. BackHFY vessels focused concentrated beams of pure energy that cut through organic hulls. Like knives through flesh, the Cathari fought back with desperate fury. Acid streams and plasma bolts struck coalition ships. Jake watched on his display as Allied vessels were destroyed, their crews dying in the cold darkness of space. Each death was a weight on his heart. But he could not stop. They could not stop. "Enemy formation is breaking," Lisa observed. "They are pulling back toward the Prime World." "That is where we need them," Jake said. "All ships, pursue. Do not let them regroup." The battle became a running fight across the system. Coalition ships chased the Cathari vessels, destroying them one by one. The living ships tried to flee, tried to escape, but there was nowhere to go. Human tactical networks coordinated every move, ensuring that no enemy vessel could slip away. After 6 hours of continuous combat, the Cathari fleet had been reduced to less than 200 ships. They gathered close to the Prime World, forming a final defensive ring around the massive organic planet. Admiral Walsh appeared on Jake's screen. Her face was tired but determined. "Commodore, the ground assault is ready. General Cole is standing by with the strike team. We need you to break through that final ring and create an opening." "Understood, Admiral." "First battle group, form spearhead formation. We are going in." Jake's ships arranged themselves into a tight wedge with the Defiance at the tip. They accelerated toward the enemy line at maximum speed. Cathari vessels fired everything they had. Ships around Jake were hit. Some survived. Others did not. "Shields at 40%, Lisa reported. "Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12. "Keep going," Jake ordered. His hands gripped the armrests of his command chair so tight his knuckles turned white. The Defiance struck the enemy line like a hammer. Pulse cannons blazed at point-blank range. Kinetic rounds tore through organic hulls. A Cathari cruiser tried to ram them, but Sam destroyed it with 3 quantum warheads, turning it to dust seconds before impact. "We are through," Lisa announced. "Opening an enemy formation. General Cole, you are clear for insertion." A single transport ship raced through the gap, carrying General Nathan Cole and 50 of humanity's best soldiers. They flew directly toward the Prime World, weaving between enemy fire, protected by fighter escorts from 3 different species. The transport landed on the living surface of the planet. General Cole led his team out into a nightmare landscape. The ground pulsed beneath their feet. Organic towers rose around them, filled with strange lights and stranger sounds. The air was thick and warm, almost like being inside a living creature. "Central consciousness chamber should be 2 kilometers north," Cole said, checking his tactical display. "Move fast. We do not have much time." They fought through tunnels made of flesh and bone. Cathari defenders attacked them, smaller creatures designed for close combat. Human soldiers fired weapons that burned and dissolved organic matter. The advance was bloody and brutal. Cole lost 12 soldiers before they reached the chamber. 12 good people who would never go home. He would mourn them later. Now, there was only the mission. The central chamber was vast. In its center floated something that looked like a brain the size of a building. It pulsed with dark energy, and Jake could almost hear thoughts that were not his own pressing against his mind. "Plant the charges," Cole ordered. "All of them." His soldiers worked quickly, attaching quantum destabilization devices to the massive organic structure. The brain thing seemed to sense what was happening. The chamber shook. Strange screams echoed from everywhere at once. Charges set. 60 seconds to detonation. "Everyone out. Now." They ran. The corridors behind them twisted and closed, trying to trap them. 3 more soldiers fell. But the survivors kept moving, driven by desperation and the knowledge that the entire war depended on their escape. The transport was still waiting when they burst out onto the surface. They threw themselves aboard. The pilot lifted off before the doors were even closed. "Detonation in 10 seconds, Cole reported over the fleet channel. "All ships, brace for unknown effects." The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but its effects were visible across the entire system. The prime world shuddered. Great cracks appeared in its organic surface. Dark energy pulsed outward in visible waves. And then, every Cathari vessel went still. Jake watched on his display as enemy ships stopped moving. Their organic hulls began to break apart, slowly falling into pieces. Weapons went cold. Engines died. The creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for months were suddenly nothing more than floating debris. "They are dead," Sam said, his voice filled with disbelief. "All of them. Every single Cathari ship is dead." The bridge of the Defiance was silent for a long moment. Then Lisa began to laugh. It was not a happy laugh at first. It was the sound of someone releasing months of fear and tension. But it spread. Soon the entire bridge crew was laughing and crying and hugging each other. "Admiral," Walsh's voice came over the fleet channel. "All ships, this is the Admiral. The war is over. The Cathari are destroyed. We have won." Jake sat in his command chair, too exhausted to move. They had done it. Against impossible odds, against an enemy that had crushed the greatest military force in the galaxy. Humanity had led the fight to victory. He thought about all the people who had died, the crews of destroyed ships, the soldiers who fell on the prime world, the billions who had perished before humanity even entered the war. Their sacrifice had meant something. Their deaths had not been in vain. "Set course for Earth," Jake said quietly. "Let us go home." The war was over. The galaxy was saved. And humanity, the youngest and once weakest species in the coalition, had become its greatest defenders. History would remember this day. Stories would be told for thousands of years about the humans who refused to surrender, who built a secret fleet, who taught the galaxy how to fight. Jake Morrison looked out at the stars. They seemed brighter now, filled with hope instead of fear. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.